Hey guys, tonight we're about to tiptoe into an age so drenched in faith and iron that even your coziest blanket might not keep the chill out. You see, once upon a time, long before your phone could show you cat videos, Europe was a patchwork of bickering lords, sweaty peasants, and priests whispering about salvation. Tonight, you stand at the edge of a shouting crowd in a muddy French field. The air reeks of sweat, horses, and overcooked cabbage, and at the center, on a raised wooden platform, stands a man in flowing robes, his hands lifted to the sky as if he could squeeze heaven open for you. His name? Urban II. His mission? To turn every able-bodied soul into a holy warrior and send you stumbling eastward toward a city you might never see. Oh, you think you'd survive this trip? Ha! You probably wouldn't even survive the lice in your own hair. But don't worry. Tonight, you just listen. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what ungodly hour it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins in November of 1095, in the small town of Clermont, deep in the heart of France. Word spreads like wildfire. The Pope himself will speak. For you, a ragged farmer's son, it's the best entertainment you'll get all year. Better than juggling fools at the village fair. Better than gossip about who's betting whose goat. You push through the throng, boots sinking in the cold mud. Around you, thousands huddle together, breath steaming into the frosty air, faces upturned like sunflowers, hoping for a glimpse of the man who claims to hold the keys to heaven. Urban II does not disappoint. His voice is thunderous, echoing over the sea of hoods and hungry eyes. He doesn't mumble about prayer or taxes, no. Tonight he promises adventure, forgiveness, and something far juicier than sin, salvation wrapped in violence. He paints the East as a land dripping with milk and honey, but also crying for help. Brothers and sisters in the Holy Land, he says, are trampled under the boots of infidels. Jerusalem, where Christ bled, is insulted daily by hands unworthy to touch its stones. He points a finger so commanding you feel it poking your own chest. He roars words that stab into your ribs. Deus vult, God wills it. And you simple half-starved peasant, you feel a strange flame flicker in your gut. For once, you could be more than a toothless farmhand. For once, you could matter. But let's not kid ourselves. Behind this holy roar hides politics thicker than the mud under your toes. Urban isn't just saving Jerusalem, he's saving his own chair in Rome. The Byzantine emperor, way out east, is screaming for backup against the encroaching Seljuk Turks. Urban sees a chance to bind Europe's brawling nobles into one big angry fist and smash it into the east, conveniently solving the problem of knights killing each other over chicken coops back home. Oh, and the rumor you hear from the back row? If you join this crusade, every sin you ever committed will be erased. Gone. No more guilt about stealing your neighbor's goat or peeking at the miller's wife while she bathes. It's all scrubbed clean. Just pick up a sword and walk east. This promise spreads faster than a tavern brawl. By the time Urban steps down from that wooden stage, the crowd is in a frenzy. Men tear off scraps of cloth, tying them in crosses on their shoulders. Some kneel in the mud, vowing to leave their wives, their fields, even their grudges behind. The idea of a pilgrimage turns overnight into a holy stampede. But you, dear listener, do you see the irony? A faith built on turning the other cheek now wraps its followers in chainmail. Forgiveness, but with pointy ends. It's like trying to clean your room with a flamethrower. Effective perhaps, but a little excessive. Amidst this feverish energy, the Pope's envoys fan out like street preachers carrying the fiery message. To Italy, Germany, England, anywhere a man with a sword might hear. Monasteries scribble letters by candlelight. Churches ring their bells until the crows flee the steeples. Europe hums with a single chant, Deus vult. And through it all, you stand there, mud-caked and trembling, half terrified, half thrilled. You have no idea what a desert looks like. You think camels might breathe fire. But it doesn't matter. You clutch the wooden cross you carved yourself, and for the first time in your short, dirty life, you feel chosen. Yet, Remember this. Many. Historians still argue whether Urban truly believed in saving Jerusalem or just wanted more power over kings who were, frankly, more used to stabbing each other than praying together. But that, dear dreamer, is a worry for another night. For now, the spark is lit, and once it catches, no rain in heaven or hell can put it out. You've done it. You've pledged yourself to the cross. You've hugged your crying mother goodbye. You've promised your sweetheart you'll return with treasures fit for a king. Now look around you. This so-called army you've joined looks more like a ragged parade than a force to reclaim Jerusalem. There's your neighbor, old Thomas, who once lost a brawl with a goat. Now he's got a wooden spear and calls himself God's hammer. Beside him, a barefoot monk preaches forgiveness, though his own hair teems with lice-plotting revolutions in his scalp. This is the early spring of 1096. All across Europe, crowds gather in fields, dusty roads, and village squares. Nobles puff out their chests, peasants grin at their newfound purpose, and local priests bless each makeshift company as if handing out holy armor. Except this armor is usually a thick tunic, maybe a rusty helmet from grandfather's war, and whatever rusty blade you can beg or borrow. Picture it. You're squeezed among merchants pushing wagons, beggars limping along for free bread, children who have no clue what desert sun feels like. Mothers cling to the edges of the caravan, some hiding babies under cloaks, because even heaven's call can't silence a baby at 3 a.m. And all the while, behind you, Europe breathes a sigh of relief. Good riddance to so many unruly mouths to feed and fists to dodge in tavern fights. Among the gathering masses, some names stand taller than your average goat farmer. There's Peter the Hermit, a wild-eyed preacher in a filthy robe who looks more like he should be shouting at street pigeons than commanding thousands. But oh, when he speaks, you feel your spine straighten, your tired feet itch to march east. He rides a donkey, yes, a donkey, as if daring every knight on horseback to laugh in God's face. Peter's not alone. You'll hear whispers of Walter Sans-Avoir, Walter the Penniless, they call him. Fitting, since he has no money, no plan, and no real clue what waits in Anatolia. But Walter's charm is like cheap wine, sweet enough to lure a crowd, strong enough to make you forget tomorrow's headache. He recruits peasants, petty thieves, retired soldiers, even a few curious nobles who fancy an easy adventure before dinner. And so, the so-called People's Crusade, yes, that's what some chroniclers call this tide of dreamers, begins to crawl toward the east. Imagine a line of humans stretching miles along forest paths, their chatter mingling with the groans of ox carts. Chickens squawk from baskets. Dogs bark at passing knights. Some poor soul tries to sell stale bread for a fortune. Everyone wants to believe they're part of something sacred, even if half the crowd can't point out Jerusalem on a map. Yet here's a morsel most forget. Not every pilgrim was a saint in training. Among the honest folk, there slithered pickpockets, drunkards, con men peddling fake relics. One man even sold a toenail he claimed belonged to St. Peter himself. Others carried grudges like extra baggage, using the chaos to settle old scores, under the holy banner. And if you squint through the smoke of campfires at night, you might catch a glimpse of traveling preachers who whisper venom about their neighbors, mainly the Jewish communities scattered through Rhineland towns. Enemies of Christ, they hiss. And so begins a tragic undercurrent in this glorious exodus. Pogroms, massacres of innocent Jewish families who had nothing to do with the Holy Land, but suddenly found themselves the first victims of this holy rage. Many historians still argue if the Pope foresaw this or turned a blind eye, maybe both. As you stumble along, your feet blistered, your stomach rumbling, you overhear rumors of free food and wine waiting for you in Hungary. Some claim King Koloman, what a name, will greet you with gifts and songs. The truth? He's terrified. To him, your massive, half-starved horde is a swarm of locusts draped in crosses. You beg, you barter, you steal if you must. Local villagers hide livestock in cellars, praying you move on before everything edible disappears. But don't lose your nerve yet. Picture the mood at camp each night. 1,000 campfires flicker under the same moon you know today. Lice crackle under sweaty caps. Laughter rises as tales of what Jerusalem will look like grow more and more ridiculous. Some say there's gold paving the streets. Others swear you can scoop water from wells that cure your sins as you drink. You nod along because hope tastes better than stale bread. In the chaos, brawls break out. Peter the Hermit tries to calm everyone with more sermons, but sometimes even he can't outshout a mob hungry for meat and wine. Walter Sans-Avoir shakes his head. He didn't sign up to babysit 10,000 human stomachs. Yet every dawn, despite frost, rain, or rumors of bandits ahead, the masses keep trudging forward, a miracle in itself, if you squint kindly at it. Then, just as you wonder if the East might greet you with open arms, reality punches you in the nose. The Hungarian king, fearing pillage, slams his gates shut. Skirmishes erupt. You see men who, yesterday prayed beside you, now hacking down strangers for a crust of bread. Those too weak to fight beg on their knees. Those too angry to beg set fire to barns. This so-called holy tide shows its darker currents, where faith and hunger make for an unpredictable cocktail. Amidst this, rumor sprouts wings. The Turks are waiting beyond the next hill. Many scoff. Turks? Who cares? God's on your side, right? But if you could read the future, and I do wish you could, dear listener, you'd see the People's Crusade soon crashing like a wave against a stone fortress. Thousands who left their homes dreaming of relics and redemption will find only arrows and betrayal instead. So you, tired feet blistered and tunic soaked in sweat, keep pace under your wooden cross. You clutch it like a passport to paradise, unaware that paradise sometimes charges an awful toll, and somewhere in the mess you might even think, was the Pope's promise too good to be true? But hush now. Tomorrow brings the first taste of real battle. And trust me, you'll wish for these squabbles over stale bread once you hear the hiss of Seljuk arrows in the dark. You tighten your belt, mumble a prayer that sounds suspiciously like a bargain with fate, and trudge on. After all, Deus vult, right? So you keep telling yourself. Morning comes like a slap in the face. Your eyes crack open, your back aches from sleeping on frozen ground, and the distant howl of a hungry dog reminds you how far you are from your mother's warm bread. But there's no time to mope. Today, you and your makeshift horde cross from the safety of Europe into lands the maps call Anatolia, homeland of the Seljuk Turks. Peter the Hermit, that scraggly preacher who looks like he bathes once a season, rides ahead on his donkey, still waving, his bony arms, promising that angels watch over you. You want to believe him, truly you do. But the landscape has changed. Hills grow rockier, trees sparser, the wind sharper. Even the birds seem to squawk in foreign tongues. By now, your army is split into clumps. Some are already days ahead, impatient, fools led by Walter Sans-Avoir and a few brash knights who fancy themselves invincible. They boast that the Turks will scatter like frightened sheep once they see so many crosses. It's cute how wrong they are. You chew on the last of your salted pork, cursing how each step blisters your heels raw. Around you, men and women grumble. Children cry themselves hoarse. Rumors swirl. Some say the Turks have thousands of horsemen. Others claim they shoot arrows faster than a man can blink. A few braver souls snort at these tales, but you notice they sharpen their rusty blades when they think no one's watching. At dusk, a ragged scout gallops back, horse foaming at the mouth. His shout rips through campfires and half-sung prayers. Turks just over the next hill. Silence follows, heavy enough to choke on. You glance at Peter. Does he look worried? Hard to tell, under that filthy beard. By dawn, your ragtag horde tries to look like an army. A few knights shove peasants into shaky lines, barking orders borrowed from real generals they once heard about in taverns. Shields? Mostly wooden doors, stolen from poor villagers. Armor? An old cooking pot makes a passable helmet if you squint. Then it happens. Your first real glimpse of the Seljuks. You hear them before you see them. Hooves drumming like thunder. War cries high and eerie, cutting through the morning mist. The bravest among you, perhaps foolishest, shout Deus vult and charge forward with pikes and clubs raised. An arrow buries itself in the throat of the man beside you before he finishes his battle cry. He crumples so quietly, you want to believe he just tripped. But then more arrows whistle past, sticking, in shields, shoulders, the soft earth at your feet. You taste metal in your mouth, though you've bitten nothing. Chaos erupts. The Seljuks circle like sharks, horse archers riding rings around your clumsy ranks. For every peasant swinging a tau, a dozen arrows answer. You watch grown men drop weapons and run. Some drop everything, including their dignity. Mothers clutch children and stumble blindly through thorny scrub. Someone yells that Peter the Hermit has vanished, escaped back to Constantinople to plead for help, or maybe just to save his skin. Many historians still debate whether he deserted or was ordered back. You, however, have bigger worries than debating history right now. You duck behind a dying mule, heart hammering against your ribs. Blood spatters your tunic. Whose, you don't know. Above the screams, you hear the hiss of arrows and the Seljuks' cruel laughter. They barely bother to chase. They know you'll scatter like spilled grain. And scatter you do. A few desperate groups huddle behind wagons, trying to make a stand. You crawl among them, trembling, your hands raw from clutching your worthless wooden spear. Beside you, an old man. He once bragged about fighting bandits near Paris, sobs and mutters prayers through cracked lips. The next arrow finds his eye. You nearly retch. Hours drag on like a nightmare under a boiling sun. The Turks pick off stragglers, torch supply carts, and vanish into the hills before any brave soul thinks to give chase. By evening, the field is littered with bodies, half buried in dust, buzzing with flies. You crouch behind a burnt wagon wheel, so thirsty your tongue scrapes the roof of your mouth like sandpaper. Somewhere in that ruin, Walter Sans-Avoir lies dead, slain with many of his so-called soldiers. A few stubborn bands retreat toward a ruined fortress called Zaragordon, hoping stone walls might save them. They hold out for days, boiling leather saddles for soup, sucking dew off rocks. But the Turks wait them out, mocking them from hilltops. When the fortress finally falls, survivors are butchered or enslaved. Easy prey for an enemy who knows patience is sharper than any sword. And you, lucky, unlucky. You survive because you hide among corpses until dusk, then crawl west through the brush, your tunic stiff with blood and fear. When you finally stagger into a half-abandoned village, a passing Greek farmer takes pity, dropping a chunk of moldy bread at your feet. You chew it like a starving dog. Whispers float among the few battered survivors. Peter is alive. He's in Constantinople again, begging the Byzantine emperor for more food, more weapons, maybe a miracle or two. He'll claim this was just a setback. He'll say the real crusaders, noble knights with real armor, are still coming. Perhaps he's right. You look at the wounds on your arms, the welts on your ankles from days crawling through brambles, and you can't help but bark out a weak laugh. If this is what salvation looks like, maybe you'd rather kiss your old goat back home. Yet even in your exhaustion, you know one thing: Europe won't stop. This people's crusade, this parade of dreamers and fools, was only the opening act. Behind you, in Europe's smoky taverns and drafty castles, real knights gather. Armored war horses snort in stables. Swords are sharpened by candlelight. Ambition hums louder than church bells. And you, mud-caked and half-broken, limp back toward Constantinople. You tell yourself you'll warn them. You'll tell the noble lords what you've seen, how the Turks dance around you like hawks teasing mice. Maybe they'll listen. Maybe they'll learn. But you suspect they won't. After all, Deus Vult, right? God wills it, so why bother planning ahead? As you slump near a dying campfire that night, staring at the moon through half-closed eyes, one final truth hums in your tired skull. Many historians still debate if Peter's naive faith inspired courage or simply led lambs to slaughter. But you, a living witness, already know the answer. And sleep comes at last, heavy and dreamless, as the wind carries the distant hoofbeats of a real army approaching, a storm yet to break. Sleep clings to your bones like wet cloth, but the restless clang of armor and snorting of horses pries your eyes open again. This is no peasant horde anymore. You found your way back to Constantinople, half-starved and half-crazy, just in time to witness Europe's iron answer to your pitiful parade, the Prince's Crusade. You wipe grit from your eyes and watch them gather at the great city's walls. Real knights with real banners, crests polished so bright they blind you. At noon, mailcoats ripple like rivers of metal. War horses paw the ground, biting at reins, already impatient for blood. For a moment, you feel a twinge of childish awe. This is what a crusade is supposed to look like. There's Bohemond of Taranto. Tall, wolfish grin, rumored to be as cunning as the devil himself. Some mutter he's more interested in carving out his own kingdom than saving Jerusalem. Then there's Godfrey of Bouillon. Pious, solemn, a tower of muscle who'd rather pray than boast. And that Norman nobleman, Raymond of Toulouse, who insists he's too old for foolish games but carries enough gold to pay for an army twice over. They arrive not all at once but in waves. Normans from Italy, Franks from France, Germans dragging, wagons so heavy the bridges of the Balkans groan under the weight. Each prince comes with his own banners, own priests, own grudges. The Byzantine Emperor Alexios greets them with forced smiles and secret dread. Europe's finest warriors are both his best hope and worst nightmare. You loiter on the edge of their splendid camps, just another ragged ghost of the peoples. Crusade, your scars hidden under a borrowed cloak. You listen to the camp gossip, how Alexios cunningly demands each leader swear fealty before ferrying them across the Bosporus. Some bristle at this. Why should a Greek emperor boss around Christendom's finest? But they agree anyway, more or less. Each swears loyalty with fingers crossed behind his back. Many historians still argue whether Alexios trusted them, or merely prayed they'd die far from his capital. One dawn, you slip through the bustling camp, marveling at the clanging forges where blacksmiths hammer out fresh swords, where stable boys brush sleek chargers until their coats gleam. Bread bakes in communal ovens, its warm scent wrapping around your empty belly like a cruel joke. This is not your filthy band of beggars and daydreamers. This is an organized engine of war, fueled by ambition and a little too much holy fervor. And so the grand crossing begins. You watch flotillas of creaking ships ferry war horses and knights across the cold waters to Asia Minor. There's no going back now. Not for them, not for you, straggler though you are. You cling to a mule's saddle, promising to help the stable hands just so you won't be left behind again. Once ashore, the crusade grinds forward like a parade of iron and prayers. They march in tight columns, banners snapping in the wind, spears bristling like a thorny forest. A sight to make the Seljuks rethink their previous game of cat and mouse. Except the Seljuks don't scare easily. You learn this fast enough. Their first real test comes near Nicaea, a city you can't even pronounce properly, but quickly learn to curse. Kilij Arslan, the Seljuk Sultan, once laughed at Peter's rabble. But now he faces a beast of knights, clad in iron scales. He leaves his palace, rallies his horsemen, and hurls them like a spear at the crusaders. You huddle behind a supply cart as the battle breaks open under a pitiless sun. Arrows darken the sky. Horses shriek as spears gut their bellies. Knights shout commands drowned by the clangor of blade on shield. One moment, you're ducking stray shafts. The next, you're pressed into hauling water to the wounded, your hands shaking so bad you spill half of it. The Crusader cavalry charges are something else entirely. You watch Bohemond's armored column thunder forward, each knight a moving tower, lances couched under arms, crashing into Turkish horsemen like boulders hurled by angry gods. There's a beauty to it if you forget the screams. But it isn't all glory. Between charges, the Turks scatter, reform, sting again with arrows from afar. A knight beside you, helmet dented, growls how these devils never stand still, like hunting smoke with a dagger. The siege drags on. Food dwindles. Food, tempers, fray. Inside Nicaea's walls, the Turks taunt the Crusaders with mocking drums and insults shouted in tongues you don't know but somehow understand anyway. The Byzantines lend ships to blockade the city's lakeside walls, choking off any chance of resupply. Siege engines lurch forward, catapults flinging stones the size of children. One dawn, word ripples through the tents. The Turks surrender, but not to the Crusaders. Alexios has secretly negotiated with the city's defenders. By the time Bohemond and Raymond stomp through the gates, the Byzantine banners already flutter above the towers. There's no loot, no easy massacre, no payback for days of hunger and bleeding. The knights bristle at this treachery. Fists clench around sword hilts. You hear them mutter about the emperor's double cross. Many historians still debate whether Alexios saved the city or stole its prize from the crusading princes. But you, knee-deep in mud and gossip, know this. Resentment now simmers beneath the Holy Alliance, like embers waiting for dry straw. Still, there's no turning back. Nicaea taken, the princes gather in council under silken tents, arguing maps and routes. Some demand a quick push to Antioch, the ancient crossroads. Others insist on burning every village in their path as practice for Jerusalem's gates. Meanwhile, you sit near a fire at dusk, picking ticks from your skin, wondering if any of these armored giants remember the ghosts of Peter's poor pilgrims who lie rotting under Turkish soil just a few hills away. Before sleep claims you hear a rumor carried by a toothless cook. Kilij Arslan is licking his wounds but not beaten. He knows the land better than any cross-bearing knight. He'll fight again, and smarter next time. You pull your ragged blanket tighter, watching the sparks drift up into a black sky, and tell yourself you're ready for anything. After all, you survived the People's Crusade. Surely nothing can surprise you now, right? Except, as you drift into uneasy dreams of horsemen and stone walls, you hear a distant laugh in the wind, a reminder that in this holy war, the worst surprises often arrive before dawn. And dawn, for this grand crusade, has barely broken. Dawn tastes like ash and iron. When you crack open your crusted eyelids, the camp is already a restless sea of hooves and curses. Nicaea, so bitterly won, so sneakily snatched by the Byzantine emperor, is shrinking behind your back now. Ahead sprawls the road to Dorylaeum, a name you can't spell but will never forget. Your feet move because everyone's due. Dust chokes your nose, clings to your lashes, turns sweat into gritty rivers down your spine. You glance at the long columns, banners flapping, armored knights grumbling about Alexios's tricks, priests chanting Latin hymns like a wall against the devil's arrows. Somewhere in this creaking caravan, you know greed and glory sleep in the same tent. And yet, for now, morale is strangely high. Why not? Nicaea fell. God is on your side, the nobles say. One victory means another. Besides, Kilij Arslan is licking, his wounds somewhere far away. You tell yourself this as your blistered soles slap the rocky road. You tell yourself this every mile until you almost believe it. Then, like a curse whispered into the wind, the rumor comes. Kilij Arslan rides again. Stronger, smarter, angrier. He's gathered fresh tribes, Turkish horsemen who know every ravine, every dry streambed to ambush a column too sure of its own holiness. Many historians still argue if the Crusaders underestimated him or simply didn't care. You, sweat-soaked and dragging a mule by its rope, know it's both. It happens just after sunrise outside Dorylaeum. The vanguard, Bohemon's Normans, reckless as ever, marches ahead while the main host trudges half a day behind. You doze against your mule's flank, dreaming of goat stew, when the ground begins to tremble. At first you think it's thunder, then the screams confirm it's worse. You clamber onto a boulder, heart hammering your ribs. A black swarm moves, like a living storm on the plain. Kilij Arslan's cavalry, thousands, hooves drumming the earth's bones into powder, banners whipping in the wind, arrows glinting like a swarm of wasps eager to sting. Bohemon's forward camp scatters like startled pigeons. Norman knights scramble into armor, slapping on chainmail while half awake. Arrows rain from the ridges, horses shriek, men yell for Christ's mercy. You duck behind your mule again, poor beast trembling so hard you swear it might pray too. Bohemond roars orders that almost sound calm. Form a circle, shield wall the wagons. Buy time until Godfrey and Raymond drag their sluggish troops up the road. You join a knot of servants hauling barrels, piling them into a makeshift barricade. It feels laughably thin against a tide of horse archers whose arrows fall like summer hail. Inside the circle, chaos breathes hot on your neck. Wounded men clutch at you, beg for water you don't have. An arrow buries itself in the cart inches from your ear. Your heart almost jumps out your mouth. You dare peek over the barrels. The Turks dance just out of lance reach, loosing arrows in lazy arcs, never wasting a breath. Knights attempt to sally out, great armored towers thundering through a rain of darts. Some push the Turks back, most wheel about, limping home with empty saddles behind them. From your pitiful barricade, you watch each charge, each retreat, each lost soul dragged screaming behind enemy lines. The smell of blood and sweat is so thick you can taste it on your tongue. Hours stretch like years. You hear a rumor, Godfrey and Raymond are coming. But rumors are cruel. Just when your hope sags like old rope, a distant horn brays through the dusty air. More Crusader banners, more armor glinting in the savage sun. You nearly laugh at how beautiful that sight is. Fresh knights crashing into Turkish flanks, spears punching through swirling horsemen like pins through silk. You find your voice and shout nonsense praises. So do 1,000 other throats, hoarse and giddy. The Turks, caught between two hammer blows, break. Not all at once, no. Kili Arslan's riders slip away in knots, vanishing into gullies and hills, ghosting back into the wilds where no armored knight can follow fast enough. A victory, yes, but not the kind that makes you feel clean inside. When a Paituan, the fighting dies. You crawl from your barricade, legs like water. The field around you is a slaughterhouse painted in flies and broken weapons. Knights clasp each other's shoulders, roaring prayers of thanks to a god who clearly charges interest for miracles. Servants pick through the dead for salvageable boots and cloaks. Some wounded moan softly under makeshift blankets. Some don't moan at all. You overhear a pair of nobles argue near a blood-soaked banner. One wants to chase Kili Arslan into the hills tonight. The other scoffs, reminding him the horses need rest, the men need food, the wounded need mercy. Many historians still debate whether a swift pursuit could have ended Turkish harassment early. You watch the setting sun torch the western sky and think, who cares? You're just glad you're still here to smell the burned rations and the acrid stink of torn flesh. Night falls, and the Crusader host sprawls across the plain like a dragon too fat to fly. Fires flicker where surgeons work by torchlight, blades clinking against bone. You wrap yourself in a stolen cloak and lie on a bed of trampled grass, staring up at stars so sharp they look like shattered glass. Tomorrow, the host will march again, south, always south, toward Antioch, toward Jerusalem, toward a dream scribbled in holy books by men who never saw a Turkish arrow up close. You turn on your side, trying to shut out the rasping snores, the distant sobs of a boy calling for a mother who'll never answer again. Somewhere in the darkness you swear you hear the ghost of Kilij Arslan laughing. He lost today, but the road ahead promises deserts, sieges, betrayals enough to make today's ambush look like a picnic by the river. You bury your face in your cloak, whispering a promise to yourself. No matter what comes next, you'll keep your head down, your ears open, your feet moving. Because in this holy crusade, the dead are the only ones free from surprise. Sleep comes slow, but at least it comes. And in your half-dream, you see Jerusalem on the horizon, golden, distant, impossible. And behind it, 1,000 more dawns waiting to test you, to break you, to remind you just how thin a pilgrim's hope can stretch under the weight of iron and faith. By the time you peel open your eyes again, dawn is already scrubbing the battlefield clean with soft pink light. Around you, the army of Christ coughs, limps, and curses itself back to life. Somewhere among the battered wagons, a monk mumbles half-forgotten prayers. A Norman squire polishes a dented helmet, humming off-key. Flies swarm the last bloated bodies left for the crows. You drag yourself upright, joints creaking like an old door. South, always south, toward Antioch. You're not sure how many weeks have bled away since Nicaea. Out here, time dissolves into blisters, mule dung, and the same bowl of thin gruel every dusk. If you had a coin for every time you hear Deus Vult shouted to rally flagging spirits, you'd have enough gold to hire your own army and skip straight to Jerusalem. The further you march, the more the land rebels against your iron swarm. Anatolia isn't some friendly garden path. It's a blistering oven by day, a frozen slab by night. The sun peels skin from the back of your neck while scorpions stalk. Your sleep, Water hides in poisoned wells or stagnant puddles ringed with animal bones. You pass villages that gape at you with black, empty windows. Turks burned them to the ground as they retreated. Better ashes than crusader rations. Many historians still debate whether Kili Arslan's scorched earth slowed the crusade or hardened it into the beast that would someday batter Jerusalem's gates. But you just know hunger sharpens a man's teeth far better than piety. Food dwindles so quickly that bread becomes more precious than relics. Knights bicker with their squires over the last salted fish. Servants sneak into supply wagons and vanish in the night. Better to risk a Turkish arrow than die of thirst under a Christian banner. You catch yourself licking your own sweat just to pretend you're quenching your thirst. It's during one of these miserable trudges that the first real cracks appear among the princes. Raymond of Toulouse, proud and aging, insists on a cautious march, rationing strength and supplies. Bohemond, ever the wolf, wants speed, less waiting, more plunder, more chance to snatch Antioch before any rival can claim it for himself. Godfrey tries to play peacemaker but ends up snarling like the rest when his men go to bed hungry. You watch this squabbling like a ghost drifting from tent to tent, never trusted, never quite invisible. You learn to nod wisely, to keep secrets, to hide the stale biscuit you steal from an unattended satchel. Some nights you whisper to the mule you still drag behind you, "Stay alive, old friend." These armored saints are about to eat each other. Then, as if the desert hasn't punished you enough, the Seljuks strike again. This time, not as a roaring wave, but like gnats biting exposed flesh, day after endless day. A raid at dusk, screams, a few tents burning, a handful of heads spiked on the nearest hill. Dawn finds you still clutching a rock for protection, heart thudding like a drum in a funeral march. March, skirmish, starve. Repeat. The Iron Army refuses to die, but each step peels away another layer of your faith and glory. Antioch, the legendary citadel of St. Peter, the prize that promises to refill empty bellies and empty coffers, grows nearer with each mile but feels more mythical than ever. Finally, your ragged column crests a ridge, and there she sits. Antioch, ancient jewel at the Orontes River's bend. Her walls rise so high you have to squint against the sun to see their tops. Towers glare back at you like old kings daring you to try your luck. Inside those stones lies food, wealth, and shelter from the endless Turkish darts. But between you and Antioch lies a bitter truth. You are outnumbered, half-starved, and surrounded by a countryside that hates your foreign armor. Many historians still puzzle over why the princes chose to besiege such a fortress with so little preparation. Pride? Desperation? Or the simple logic of men who know there is no going back? The siege begins not with thunder and trumpets, but with the slow grind of desperation. You help drive stakes into the earth, throwing up a pathetic ring of palisades around a city older than most saints. At night, Turkish riders slip in and out, cutting throats, torching food stores, mocking your holy cause with songs drifting over the walls. Inside Antioch, the Seljuk governor Yagi Siyan scoffs at the Iron Men camping in his shadow. He knows. Hunger is sharper than any blade. When his horsemen can't pick off your scouts, famine does the work for him. You chew roots, boiled leather, weeds ripped from stinking marshes. One unlucky fool tries to cook a stray dog. He's beaten half to death by starving soldiers who want the same miserable meat. One dawn, you glimpse a knight, gaunt, fevered, offering his last coin to a camp follower for a handful of lentils. You think about your mule. You think about how tender a slow-cooked flank might taste. You shake the thought away, but it claws at your mind every time your belly grumbles. Weeks blur. A storm sweeps the plains, turning tents to rags flapping. In cold wind, mud swallows boots whole. Some nights you dream of warm bread and wake to find your hand clenched around empty air. Some say saints visit them in dreams, whispering that victory is near. You suspect saints have better places to be than this rain-soaked quagmire. And yet, somehow, the siege does not break. Knights cling to hope as stubbornly as ticks cling. To dogs, they build siege towers, fling boulders, plug breaches with bodies. Every setback breeds a new rumor of rescue. Maybe a Byzantine relief force, maybe a supply caravan, maybe a miracle. One dusk, you sit under a half-collapsed lean-to, rain dripping down your nose, and laugh bitterly with a one-eyed archer from Picardy. He swears he once saw Peter the Hermit begging scraps behind a latrine. Now he's somewhere safe, far from this muddy hell. You nod, mutter a prayer you barely mean, and promise yourself, if you survive Antioch, you'll never trust any holy man again. Above you, Antioch's towers loom black against a bruised sky, indifferent to your hunger, your prayers, your dying friends. You hug your knees, dream of roasted mutton, and wonder, when Jerusalem finally lies before you, will there be enough of you left to care? For now you sleep with one eye open, one hand on a rock, and one last whispered vow to see the sunrise. If God wants you dead tonight, he'll have to stand in line behind the Turks, the rain, and your own empty stomach. When you next stir awake, a voice is telling you lies, sweet ones. A fresh supply caravan is coming. A fleet sails up from Cyprus, heavy with flour and dried fish. You laugh into your ragged blanket, breath misting in the dawn chill. Lies taste better than boiled weeds, so you swallow them gladly. Days drip past like water through a cracked bucket. Antioch's walls still grin down at you. 100 towers, each an insult carved in stone. Now and then, you glimpse defenders swaggering atop the battlements, Turkish archers showing you precisely how well fed they still are. Food becomes a ghost everyone chases. Even the great lords sneak out of their tents to scrounge. One morning, you watch a knight, once so shiny you couldn't look straight at him, digging in a ditch for roots like a peasant. He catches your eye. Neither of you says a word. Rumors swirl thicker than the campfire smoke. One prince is ready to abandon the siege. Another plots to sell secrets to the Byzantines. A third wants to turn cannibal. Not a joke, you hear someone swear. Many historians still bicker over whether the Crusaders actually ate the dead at Antioch. All you know is that more than once, a grave was found suspiciously disturbed at dawn. You, ever the clever shadow, become a thief by necessity. You creep from tent to tent, lifting stale crusts, drying your spoils in your filthy blanket. Once you catch yourself eyeing your mule again, its ribs look like a harp's strings. One quick cut, a small fire, a belly that doesn't scream tonight. But you don't. Not yet. The mule still has a name. Once that's gone, you know you'll eat it. Then, as if the Lord himself pities, your crawling host, hope arrives on muddy boots. A distant roar, word that an Armenian inside the city walls, a man called Firuz, will open a gate for the Franks. You don't know him. You don't care. You just know the rumor tastes better than lentils. Nights fill with whispered plans. Bohemond, that cunning wolf, slithers among the barons, promising that if they trust him, just him, he will break Antioch, like an egg, and claim it for the cross. Some nobles spit at the idea. Others clutch at it like drowning men. You listen from the shadows, pretending you don't exist. When the night comes, it's so dark, you feel blind. A handful of men creep to the city's back gate, guided by Firuz's flickering signal. 2 lanterns hung like secret stars. You hide in the thorn bushes nearby, clutching your mule's halter so hard your knuckles ache. A shuffle of feet, a hissed command, a groan of iron hinges, and then, like a wound splitting open, Antioch's back gate yawns wide enough for death to walk through. Bohemond's men pour in first, blades hissing in the blackness. You hear shouts, clash of steel, a man choking on his own life. The city's guards, taken like dozing cattle, scramble too late. Gates slam open from within. Crusaders swarm the streets, hungry, filthy, half-mad with starvation and rage. You stumble after them, dragged by the wave. Inside the walls, chaos blooms like mold in damp bread. Fires flicker along alleyways. Soldiers batter down doors, hunting Turks who didn't flee fast enough. You slip on a smear of blood. Almost crack, your skull on a stone doorstep. Somewhere a woman screams for mercy. Somewhere else, a priest bellows a psalm no one listens to. You find yourself near the main gate just in time to see Raymond's Provençals, late to the party, pushing inside with fresh blades. Furious they missed the first loot. Fights break, out between knights from the same holy host, who stole whose prisoners, who claimed which cellar. It's hard to feel holy when you're dodging a brawl over a sack of moldy wheat. You drag your mule into an abandoned courtyard and brace its trembling sides. You tell it you'll find water soon, that you'll find a quiet corner, maybe a kitchen where no one's stabbing each other over pickled turnips. But your nose catches the scent first. Cooked meat, real meat, not a lie whispered by an empty gut. You follow the smell to a half-collapsed inn where some Norman brutes roast something over a fire. You don't ask what. You beg for a scrap. They laugh, toss you a bone. You chew it like a dog. Grease dripping down your chin, tears in your eyes. By dawn, Antioch belongs to the Crusaders, at least what's left of it after fire, fear, and knives had their say. But before you can taste peace, another storm is already rumbling at the gates. Kerboga, Atabeg of Mosul, marches with a host big enough to blot out the sun. He means to crush this half-dead swarm before it can even dream of Jerusalem. You, belly, no longer gnawing itself but still hungry for safety, watch the princes bicker anew. Some say flee, some say stand, some say pray and wait for a miracle. Many historians still wonder how the Crusaders didn't simply break and run into the hills. Maybe faith is thicker than sense. Maybe too many had nowhere else to go. You huddle in a courtyard by the Orontes River, listening to the new siege settle around your stolen city. From starving outside the walls to starving inside them. What a joke, you think, hugging your mules and neck. Yet a whisper runs through the filthy streets. A holy lance, hidden under St. Peter's Cathedral. A relic so sacred it might summon God's favor to scatter Kerboga's horde. Peter Bartholomew, a shabby mystic, swears he saw it in a vision. You roll your eyes but you don't laugh. Hope, even cheap hope, is the only feast left on this broken table. One dawn soon. You know you'll march out these gates to face the new army clawing at Antioch's flanks. With a relic, with a prayer, with an empty belly and a mule that still trusts you. You don't know if God wants you alive much longer. But as you scratch your mule's ears and watch torchlight dance along Antioch's battered towers, you promise it softly. If we survive, this next storm, old friend, maybe, just maybe, we'll live to see Jerusalem glitter in the sun. When dawn comes, you find yourself pressed shoulder to shoulder with men who look more like scarecrows than soldiers. Pale faces under dented helms, ribs showing beneath rusted mail, eyes that dart like trapped mice. And yet, here you are, lining, up beneath the battered towers of Antioch, ready to march out and meet Kerboga's host. You can smell the fear under the prayers. Peter Bartholomew, barefoot and ragged, waves a rusty spearhead overhead like it's a burning torch. He screams that this is the Holy Lance, the very point that pierced Christ's side. Some men weep at the sight, others squint, suspicious. You're too tired to doubt. If a scrap of iron can make these skeletons stand up straight, you'll worship it like a saint's tooth. Many historians still puzzle over how this half-dead mob found the backbone to sally forth, instead of barricading themselves inside Antioch's walls. Some say Peter's vision sparked it. Some whisper Bohemon's cunning had more to do with it. He knew a cornered beast is most dangerous. You, standing in the rank and file, just grip your mule's rope and promise it. Stay behind me this time. You're the only ration I've got left. A trumpet wails. The gates creak open. And suddenly you're moving forward, dragged by the tide of human desperation into the dry, searing sunlight. Ahead, the plain shivers under the armor of Kerboga's soldiers, Turks, Arabs, fierce horse archers fanning out like locusts. They shout war cries you don't understand, but the meaning is clear enough. We've come to finish what hunger couldn't. The first clash is a blur of dust, hooves, and screams. Your shield rattles like a drum against arrows you can't even see. Somewhere nearby, a Frankish knight yells to hold the line, voice cracking like an old door hinge. You squat behind your battered shield and pray the Holy Lance is more than just a rusty stick waved by a half-mad monk. Your mule tugs at its rope, terrified. You want to run with it, into the hills, into a cave, anywhere but this burning field. But your feet root themselves in the dirt. Next to you, a squire vomits into the dust, then wipes his mouth and raises his sword again. A Turk streaks past on a horse so fast it looks like a nightmare. Your neighbor falls, throat slashed open, like a wineskin. Time goes strange here. A minute is a year is a heartbeat, and somehow, By some cruelty or miracle, the Frankish line doesn't break. You catch glimpses of Bohemond at the center, roaring orders like a cornered wolf, face smeared with blood. Godfrey swings his axe as if hunger never hollowed him out. Raymond's banner flutters near the river, stubborn Provençals digging in like bedrock. And you, just a speck in this grinding storm, swear you see Peter Bartholomew staggering behind the ranks, brandishing that so-called lance, shouting prayers that melt into the clash of iron. Whether it's holy power or sheer terror of dying, faithless the line holds, and then, in one insane surge, it pushes back. You hear the shout ripple down the ranks. Advance! Advance! Like drunk ghosts, the Crusaders lurch forward. Shields slam into shields, arrows hiss and miss. You trip over a fallen Turk and nearly get trampled by your own side. Your mule brays so loud it almost drowns out the battle cries. Somehow, it's still with you, eyes rolling, foam flecking its lips. By midday, dust has turned the plain into a choking veil. You see only glimpses, Turkish riders breaking away, leaderless panic, Frankish knights hacking through loose clusters of foot soldiers. Word flies that Kerboga's allies are deserting him. These petty emirs see no point dying for another man's pride. Some say later this betrayal broke Kerboga more than any sword did. Historians argue if the Crusaders' faith won the battle, or if politics and fear among the Turks handed them victory on a platter. You, spitting grit from your teeth, know one truth. Every step forward means a chance at water, bread, and living to curse the next sunrise. And suddenly, though your arms shake, your legs barely obey, you realize it's over. The Turks scatter like crows chased from a carcass. You stand on an open plain littered with armor, broken bows, and the groans of the dying. Your mule noses, a fallen helmet, looking for grass that doesn't exist. In the days that follow, Antioch feels like a cradle again. Camp followers drag in barrels of rainwater, thin soup bubbles in blackened cauldrons. Men who days ago looked like graveyard ghosts now smile as they gnaw greasy bones. You sleep in shifts beside your mule, clutching your cloak tight, half afraid. You'll wake to find the whole victory just a dream. Bohemond, predictably, claims the city as his prize. Some lords spit at this, but none are strong enough to oust him. Godfrey grumbles, Raymond sulks, Peter the Hermit reappears to wag his holy finger. But for now, you don't care. Let them squabble over Antioch's keys. Your only treasure is that your ribs don't poke through your skin anymore. One twilight, you lean against the city's old Roman walls, watching the Orontes River drift by like a ribbon of liquid copper. You whisper to your mule about Jerusalem, still distant, still holy, still gleaming in your fevered daydreams. Many historians still wonder why, after so much starvation and slaughter, the Crusaders didn't just stay in Antioch and carve out fat principalities. Why drag themselves onward? Why bleed across more deserts just to kiss a shrine? You have no answer for them. All you know is that tonight your belly is full, your mule is alive, and your feet are already itching to march again. So you scratch its ears, grin at the moon, and promise your ragged companion, next we follow the road south. Next we chase the city of cities. Next, Jerusalem. And for the first time in many weeks, you believe you might just live long enough to see it glimmer at dawn. You don't remember who first whispered it. Maybe a Norman knight too drunk on victory wine, or a Syrian guide with a sun-peeled grin. But the rumor drifts through Antioch's stinking streets before the blood has dried in the city's alleys. Next is Jerusalem. It's spoken with cracked lips and weary laughter, as if someone just promised a beggar the crown of Byzantium. But the thought sticks to your ribs more stubbornly than old hunger. As Antioch settles into Bohemond's iron grip, new taxes, new squabbles over towers and gates, you watch ragged bands of crusaders drift toward the city's southern gate. Some desert outright, slipping away by night, pockets heavy with plunder. Others spit in the dirt and swear an oath. They didn't cross half the world to grow fat in a stolen fortress. They want the Holy Sepulchre under Christian hands, no matter how many calluses their feet must sprout along the way. You stand with your mule under the summer sun, scratching at a flea bite on your neck, pretending you're one of the noble, faithful, and not just a scrawny ghost tagging along because you're too stubborn to die. One humid dawn, the chosen leaders gather in a half-collapsed basilica. The big names are still here: Godfrey of Bouillon, tall and sharp-eyed, Raymond of Toulouse, who puffs up like an angry rooster at every slight, and the lesser barons who cling to them like barnacles on a leaky boat. They argue about routes, about food, about whether the Byzantines will help or stab them in the back. Bohemond doesn't even attend. He's too busy polishing his new title as Prince of Antioch. You'd think the knights would envy him, but most spit at his name now. They see betrayal behind his smirk. You lean against a pillar, eavesdropping, shamelessly, your mule nudging at your cloak for a crumb you don't have. The plan comes together like a half-rotten puzzle, a march south along the coast, hugging the roads near friendly ports, hoping the Byzantines keep their word and send ships with grain. Many historians still scratch their heads over why this battered rabble didn't collapse under its own stupidity. No clear leader, no steady supply chain, no map more reliable than a merchant's drunken brag. And yet, somehow, you're here, checking your mule's hooves and sharing your last handful of dried figs with a child who wandered into your camp. By September, the march begins. You thought you'd suffered every flavor of misery outside Antioch. How wrong you were. First come the coastal swamps near Latakia. Mosquitoes so fat they look like airborne raisins. They bite through mail shirts and leave welts that ooze pus. You watch a baron's horse collapse mid-trot, its belly alive with writhing worms. You whisper to your mule to keep moving, or you'll both end up buzzing with flies. Then, near Tripoli, rain. Not a gentle spring shower, but fat, punishing storms that turn the roads into sucking pits. Wagons sink axle deep. Men sink to the knees. Some drop where they stand, too sick to fight the fever that chews up their lungs at night. At each ragged halt you see children gnawing bark, old women dragging dead goats behind them hoping the hide might be worth a bowl of gruel in the next camp. You share what you can, a handful of moldy cheese, a sip from your cracked water skin. You tell yourself this makes you good, but when your mule goes lame for 2 days, you also catch yourself wondering, would its ribs taste better roasted or boiled? But then you remember its name. And you remember promises you muttered under the tattered flap of your tent. So you limp beside it instead, one arm around its neck, daring famine to do its worst. The towns along the coast watch your parade of filth and piety with wide eyes. Some local rulers, more pragmatic than pious, open their gates for trade. Christian coin for dried fruit, grain, salted fish. Others slam the gates shut, so you watch siege engines drag along behind the host like skeletal pets, ready to bash open any door that refuses God's army. At Tortosa, a minor lord swears fealty to Raymond, hoping protection from both Turks and rival Franks. You stand in the crowd, chewing a stolen pear down to the seeds and think, more tiny kingdoms for petty kings. Jerusalem's still a mirage far beyond this squabble. A few hotheads splinter off to raid villages forgetting or pretending to forget that not every local is an enemy. Some come back bragging about stolen copper trinkets and women carried off under the sign of the cross. Some never come back at all, their bones left as warnings on dusty byroads. Yet, amid all the filth and betrayal, you catch glimpses of something that doesn't smell like rot or greed. An old knight lifting a feverish boy onto his saddle so he doesn't die in the mud. A nun whispering prayers over the dying while washing lice from their hair. A gang of filthy sappers fixing a village well they could have poisoned instead. Small lights flicker in this crawling darkness. Small, but stubborn. Many historians like to paint the First Crusade in sweeping colors. Holy fervor here, bloodlust there. But you, trudging behind your mule through the mud of Lebanon's hills, know better. It's all shades of gray, and yet you march anyway. Because Jerusalem gleams somewhere ahead, bright enough to blind you to all the mud caked up to your knees. By the time the host reaches Beirut, the last of the coastal fortresses, the ranks have thinned again. Some turned back to Antioch to gamble and drink. Some rotted away in shallow graves beside nameless streams, and yet the battered column still creeps forward, feet dragging, eyes fixed south. One morning, you stand on a ridge and see, shimmering through the haze, the faint outline of Acre's white walls. Beyond that, rumors say, lies the last long stretch to the heart of all this madness. Jerusalem, city of cities, prize of every prayer uttered under 1,000 tents. You run your palm along your mule's sweaty neck and promise it softly. One more dessert, one more miracle, and maybe, just maybe, we'll stand in its shadow together. You almost believe it. Your feet hit the dry track south of Acre, with the stubborn slap of shoes that should have disintegrated weeks ago. You're no longer surprised your mule keeps pace. This creature is as impossible to kill as your hope. The host snakes behind. You, a ragged serpent of blistered feet and iron faith, crawling inch by inch toward a city that haunts every whispered prayer. Jerusalem. It's June now. The wind off the Judean hills burns your skin by day and chills your bones by night. Every breath tastes like dust and regret, but you can't stop licking your cracked lips, imagining them pressed to Jerusalem's stones, so holy they might heal every ulcer chewing at your soul. When you crest a rocky ridge, you see it at last. A pale smear on the horizon, white domes, minarets, the shimmering promise of a shrine older than all your hunger. It looks so close you swear you could stumble there before dusk if your mule would just sprout wings. But your mule, sensible beast that it is, plods onward at a pace that matches the siege lines swelling around the city's ancient walls. Godfrey's standard flickers on the northern hills. Raymond's Provençals squat on the west, building rickety siege towers from dry cypress stolen miles away. Some men hammer nails with stones because iron has run out. Others scrape the last meat off dead pack animals to keep working another dawn. Many historians still argue whether the Crusaders arrived ready to conquer or half dead already. Truth is, both are true. You see knights so thin, they sleep standing, so feverish they mumble about angels while sharpening rusty blades. Yet when the muezzin's call floats from Jerusalem's walls at dawn, every cross-wearer clenches their teeth and mutters, God wills it. They try one grand assault almost at once. Ladders rise, arrows fall like summer hail. You and your mule huddle behind a splintered mantlet, praying neither your skull nor its stubborn hide catches a stray shaft. By dusk, the ladders burn in neat pyres beneath the ramparts. The defenders laugh from the parapets. Saracens, Egyptians, a garrison, too few but clever enough to keep the city's ancient secrets out of your filthy hands. The next days blur, sweat, prayer, and failed skirmishes. Raymond's men argue with Godfrey's. Some soldiers desert outright, deciding they'd rather risk bandits on the coastal road than die spitting blood in a holy desert. Food vanishes again. You chew bitter herbs you can't name. One evening, you find your mule licking dew from tent canvas while you scrape mold from old hard bread. Still, each sunrise drags you to the siege lines. If your legs still move, you must be meant to stand here, an idea both comforting and horrifying. Then, salvation, or at least a twist of luck too suspicious to be pure chance. A fleet of Genoese sailors, greedy for relics and trade privileges, drags ship planks overland to build new siege towers. Men roar praise at this miracle of wood. You grunt thanks too, though you're pretty sure it's the Genoese gold lust that built those planks, not any choir of angels. Bohemond, now sulking in Antioch, is nowhere to be seen. You don't miss him. Here, Godfrey emerges as the spine of the host. Not flashy, not loud, just unbreakable. He shouts less about holy visions and more about how to hammer nails straight and lift towers inch by inch. Somehow this steadies the crawling chaos around you. A priest marches past daily, chanting psalms, sprinkling every wooden beam with holy water. Some knights bow deeply. You roll your eyes, then dip your head too, just in case. Many historians later wonder, did faith or desperation lift those towers? Standing beneath the groaning timbers, your back breaking under buckets of sand to douse enemy fire, you think, both. And probably a little petty greed too. The final assault dawns like a bad dream you can't shake. Dawnlight turns the dry scrub to gold as siege horns howl. You drag your mule behind a rock outcrop, slap its flank and whisper, "Stay here. If I don't come back, find another fool to feed you." It brays once, a sound you pretend is an amen. You join the line clawing up the siege tower's ramp. Arrow, slit spit death into your ranks, but you climb anyway, shoved by the crush of armored shoulders behind you. You imagine Jerusalem's stones pulsing under your boots, welcoming you, until an oil pot smashes nearby, spraying fire over a knight's cloak. Screams claw your ears. You keep moving because your mind has shrunk to one thought. Over the wall, over. When you burst onto the ramparts, your legs nearly buckle. Crusaders swarm like locusts, slashing, shoving, ripping down banners of the Fatimid garrison. You glimpse a Saracen archer cornered against a crenellation, eyes wild before a Frankish sword splits him from collarbone to hip. Somehow, you're on the wall. Somehow you're spilling down a stone stair into a street that smells of dust and panic. Bells toll a warning that's too late to matter. What happens next, God help you, can't be washed from your eyes. Frenzied knights break doors, drag people into alleys. Smoke thickens overhead, hiding the sun. You wade through bodies, stumble over broken pottery and spilled olives, dodge arrows from desperate defenders who cling to rooftops until they fall screaming to the stones below. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, this glittering prize, squats at the city's heart, its dome half hidden by smoke and the gleam of 1,000 flickering swords. You stagger there almost by accident, following the tide of your own people. Some cry tears of joy, their blood-crusted faces lifted to the sky. Some drop to their knees in rivers of gore, kissing holy steps while their boots drip horror behind them. Many historians still flinch at this moment. The first cross borne to Jerusalem's roof since it fell to Islam centuries before, hoisted high above streets now clogged with corpses. You lean against the cool church wall, tasting blood in the back of your throat, telling yourself this is salvation. This is redemption. This is what you crawled through 1,000 nightmares for. Then you remember your mule. You stagger out, picking your way through the gore, following the familiar bray that cuts through human moans like a bell in fog. You find it outside the gate you left it by, eyes bright, rope chewed halfway through. It snorts at your filthy face like it can't decide whether to nuzzle or kick you. You laugh, a cracked sound that floats over Jerusalem's still-burning roofs. You press your forehead to its nose, whispering apologies neither of you really need. Above you, the cross flickers on the holy skyline. Beneath you, the city shivers, conquered, bled dry, yet somehow alive. Many historians still debate if this was victory or a curse dressed in silk and hymns. You just know you're here, and you're breathing. And that tonight is enough. So you lead your mule down a silent lane of ashes, your shadow long behind you. You promise it. We'll rest now. Just for a while. And under the first stars over Jerusalem's quiet ruin, you finally believe it might be true. Now hush your thoughts, gentle traveler. You followed this winding trail from the Pope's fervent whisper to the final heartbeat of Jerusalem's battered stones. You've trudged through storms and sermons, through deserts thirsty enough to drink your bones dry. You've seen banners rise like dawn and fall like dusk, and you've watched men promise heaven while bleeding each other into dust. But here, in this quiet corner of the night, you don't have to carry that armor anymore. Let it slip from your shoulders. Heavy breastplates of ancient faith. Rusted helms of old regret. Feel how the weight pools softly into your mattress, how your breathing finds a slower rhythm, like the calm hush of the wind over Jerusalem's rooftops, long after the swords have fallen silent. Picture that stubborn mule, again tail flicking at a fly under a clear Judean moon. It stands guard at the city gate of your dreams, reminding you that even in chaos, something gentle, absurd, and stubbornly alive waits for you at dawn. Historians will keep arguing about relics and betrayals, about who deserved paradise and who built it on bones. But tonight, none of that noise reaches you here. Tonight you earned your peace by walking every mile side by side with ghosts who can finally rest too. So close your eyes, dear crusader of sleep. Let the cool night cradle your pulse. Let your breath drift over ancient sand turned soft by time and forgiving shadows. I promise, the fires have gone out. The swords are sheathed. The prayers are whispers now, light as your dreams. Shh. Sleep deeply. You've crossed your holy city tonight. There is nothing left to conquer but the hush inside your chest. End of script. Sweet dreams.